Hey guys, Ian here from the Gamers Gaiden with part 3 of my horror retrospective. This time looking at the actually mid 2000s, well, the O's or aughts. And we're going to talk about Condemned. Now, this came out in 2005, end of 2005. It was actually a launch title for the Xbox 360. It's published by Sega, kind of cool. And what was neat was this was developed by Monolith, who made two games, Blood and Blood 2 The Chosen. I was actually going to look at one of those for my 90s game because they were both pretty cool horror inspired shooters, but I went with Clock Tower because, I mean, Clock Tower is really fun. Anyways, Condemned. So, yeah, this is, it's a little bit more thriller. It borrows very heavily from like Silence of the Lambs, Seven, like that kind of like criminal thriller. It does get a little bit into the more supernatural later on, but I mean it's loaded with jump scares for one. I'm not gonna lie to you, tons of that. There's a lot of like general weirdness too. I mean, almost every level is like grimy. You're in like abandoned apartments, an abandoned department store, like through subway tunnels. Like you're generally in places that are like dirty and dark, and that kind of sets the atmosphere a little bit. Yeah. So in this game, you play as SCU agent Ethan Thomas. The SCU is the Serial Crimes Unit, and they kind of specialize in like investigating serial killers. They're like a specialized branch of the FBI. I have no idea if it's a real thing or not. Anyways, um, yeah. You start off investigating a crime scene that it's suspected to be another killing by the matchmaker. So you're investigating that, and then the game kind of kicks off from there. Various twists and turns, and pretty solid ending. I'm not gonna lie. I'm actually I did really enjoy that aspect of it. Gameplay wise, it kind of jumps back and forth between melee combat and investigating various crime scenes. Sometimes you're following a trail of things, but always using like forensic tools. Forensic tools that probably don't exist, but still. Anyways, it's a lot of fun. And uh, with the mix between exploration and combat, sometimes you have to have out whatever tool it is you're using to follow a trail of something or follow something that you can only see with a specific tool. But at the same time, you've got these like super aggressive I I think most of them are homeless people um, chasing you down. So that's a little terrifying. And yeah, it's very very odd. I think if this game had like firearms as kind of a primary focus, it would be 100% less scary. Now there are guns in the game. They don't not have them, but every time you pick them up, whatever ammunition is in it, that's it. Uh, which it's kind of a neat feature. You can check. There's a dedicated button to see what is left in the weapon. Whether and it's he animates in a manner whether that's checking the I guess the like cartridges on a shotgun or actually like removing the clip on a handgun and taking a look that way. So that's kind of neat. And any time you have something like that, you do feel way more powerful and way more secure. But a lot of times you're wandering around with some kind of melee weapon that you've pulled out of the environment. It does have things that you might think are a little bit more weapony, like sledgehammers, crowbars, and fire axes. But a lot of times, those three in particular are usually tools to kind of get you into a new section. So they'll be presented around the time that they're needed. You don't usually just find one for the sake of finding one. Usually they have a purpose. A lot of times you're using things like rebar or board with nails in it, electrical conduits, that kind of stuff. It's very, very simple weapons. Yeah, the melee combat is good. It feels visceral. Um, your hits feel like they have weight behind them. When you get hit, it feels like there's weight behind it. You really do. It gives you a good feeling of that. So I think if they went with like just a shooter, it would totally change the dynamic of the game, and it would be not frightening at all. Um, is it frightening? Yes. It does. It does primarily rely on jump scares, which it's. I mean, depending on how you feel about horror, I know it's kind of a trope that people don't necessarily like. Um, yeah, there are some sections, when you're investigating areas where you get, kind of creeped out, and I think that's a little bit more interesting. Um, I mean, it's 14 years old. You know, it's I know I've looked at older things, but I think, like, nostalgia wise, this stood up the worst for me. Um, I'm not saying that it's a bad game. It just, yeah, I just didn't have the same fun going back playing this that I did going back and playing like Clock Tower and Hugo's House of Horrors. It just didn't have the same impact for me. Should you play it? Absolutely. If you've never played Condemned, it's a solid game. It's only going to take you about 7 hours to run through it, maybe 8, depending. There are some collectibles, but again, like this was in the early. I mean, it was a launch title, right? This just came out as the Xbox 360 came out, so they were still working on how to implement achievements, and I think the collectibles really were just an add-on for achievement points. That's it. You really don't feel a lot of like, oh, I needed to pick this up because it's giving me more information on this and this. I mean, yes, the collectibles are like thematically interesting for the game. You're collecting dead crows and pieces of metal in the environment, both of which kind of they start making a little bit more sense as the game goes on. But I mean, it's creepy and kind of gross, so at least it's kind of like thematically appropriate. But again, like I said, it's a little bit shoehorned. Um, yeah, like I said, I'm just a little bit disappointed. There are things about the game that just felt off to me. I mean, even from the get go, Ethan seems to be like an average height person. He's not super tall or super short, but as soon as it moves you into that first person view, you're super tall. Like the environments just seem really tiny around you, and I constantly found myself wanting to crouch to move, to feel like I was at more of a normal height. But yeah, I'd like a super minor complaint. It it does check off the creepy boxes occasionally. With some of the crime scenes. It's got loads of jump scares. Some fantastic ones through the department store level with various mannequins and stuff. Like, there are some really good scenes in there. And there's definitely fun to be had if you've never played this before. If you have, I don't think it's worth the revisit. I think you're better off with the memories that you had of it instead of going back and experiencing it. To me, this just didn't stand up as well as some of the other titles. I had probably 20 or 30 games that I had listed out that were in my like 2000s bracket. And yeah, it was my biggest list of games, and I almost wish I would have gone and played something different. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. That's my 2 cents. It, you know, I still played it. I still had fun. I just have some minor gripes, and it like I said, it just didn't stand up as much as I was hoping it would. That said, I might go back and check out the sequel, which, I mean, maybe stands up a little bit better, but we'll see. I know from memory, the sequel does get a little bit more supernatural. Like right off the get go, it's a little less just seven slash Silence of the Lambs. So that's kind of cool. I mean, it depends what you're looking for. Anyways, that's my opinion. I don't know. What do you guys think? Have you played Condemned recently? Did it stand up for you? Am I way off base here? Let me know down in the comments, and I will be back shortly with the tens. Like I said, I think my next game came out this year, so and a VR title. That's all I'm gonna say. I will see you guys soon, and yeah, thanks for watching.